Hello, everybody. Welcome to session 4. It is great to have you. It's great to be here. Man, what a journey we have been on through these past 4 weeks together. Excited to be here for session 4. Let's give you a look at the agenda here just to talk about what we have in front of us before I introduce my co-hosts. First, we've got to talk about some context. You know, we've been talking about going with the all-in Google mindset, getting things into Google Workspace. What does that yield you? We've got some specific tools that we'll dive in today, both for some discussion around what these tools have to offer, but then also just around what we've seen for customer deployments. How have customers been adopting these tools? What use cases are we seeing? What successes are we seeing? What roadblocks are we seeing for Gemini for Workspace, Workspace Flows, and then Gemini Enterprise as well. We will be sharing a demo today. We've got about a 15-minute demo planned to take you through each of these tools and show you some unique features of them. And we'll end with a little summary and a Q&A. So joined, as I often am, by my wonderful co-host, Kristen. You want to go ahead and say hi?
Hello, I'm so happy to be back. This is one of my most excited one on here. As you see, one of the agenda items is Workspace Flows. That one's hot off the press, so I'm super excited about it. We've got lots of good content today. With us, we've also brought Michael.
Yes, Michael, why don't you go ahead and say hello, introduce yourself to the group.
Hello, everybody. Well, thanks, everyone, for welcoming me in today. I'm going to be taking us through a little bit of a demo here coming up shortly. But yeah, I'm just very happy to be here and to give you some practical use cases of how you can start using these tools right away, and just some of the unique advantages of just using Gemini and Workspace.
Awesome. So Michael's one of our best here. Customers often request him by name, and I've had the pleasure of dragging Michael around with me through my career over the past, I don't know, man, what, 10 years or so now? It's been a long time that we've been working together. So thank you for being here, sir. Thank you for lending us your time. And let's go ahead and pass over to Kristen then, just to get us started on this concept of context is power.
Yeah, so I think it's really important. We've spent all this time building up to, going all in, moving your data or not moving your data, utilizing it via API or whatnot. But the ultimate goal is always getting to, how can I use this data to help me better at my job or make things more efficient? And that's where we get to, you finally reach this point where it's all in place, and the tipping point of finally being able to use it in all of these really, really cool tools. I understand from an organizational perspective that it is a large decision that a company must make to choose to use AI, and which AI tool do you want to use. The one thing that we do have at SADA that I really love is we've got a really great security team to help make sure that by whatever way you decide to use AI in your organization, we can help you from an overall, let's say, governance of AI structure, or what do you want to turn on? What do you not want to turn on? Or what are your compliance and various other things to go along with? We've got a wide range of experience in different industries, be that retail, banking, other financial organizations, all of that. We realize there's a lot to take into consideration before you actually decide to do AI. So just wanted to put that bit of context in there. But we know the ultimate goal is people want to utilize AI. And what does it look like for you and your organization? So let's talk about it, starting with Gemini for Workspace.
Awesome. So as Kristen mentioned, one of the things we hear is a lot of customers come to us and say, look, I know we should be implementing AI somehow, some way, but what does that look like for me and my company? What should we be using? What should we be taking into consideration? And one of the first things we come across is Gemini for Workspace. You've taken the all-in approach. You're using Workspace for your mail, contacts, calendar, Drive, chat, meetings, all these things. And what's great about then being in that all-in mindset is that you've got Gemini at your fingertips in just about every application that you're using. Now, some AI tools that you might use separately, say you go to a different tool, you go to a different website, they might lack context. They might lack the ability to see, the entire context of what are you working on, where are the files, what's contained within them. But Gemini is grounded in context. Some places where you use Gemini in the side panel, you'll see that it has the context of what's in front of you. For instance, if you've got an email open in front of you and you're talking to Gemini in the side panel, it's got the context of what's in front of you. And other places, like we see here in this animation of Gemini in the side panel of Google Drive, we can use things like the @ symbol to mention specific files or sources, or we can even drag over some files or sources from Drive into the side panel. And that brings in additional context, right? Instead of drafting an email and asking it to maybe wordsmith for you, you can draft an email and use the @ symbol to bring in a file that you're writing the email about. So bringing in that context, having Gemini grounded in context, helps it be a lot more useful for you in all the different ways. And Michael will definitely show you some examples of that in action as well. Now, a couple other things Gemini for Workspace is going to do for you. It's going to enable that cross-app workflow. So if we say have some notes being taken in Google Meet, those notes are then stored in Google Drive. We can use something like Workspace Flows to then trigger actions based off of those notes, like update a spreadsheet or update a task or ping a chat space or do many different things. And using Gemini as part of that to make decisions or extract certain pieces of context is really powerful. Now, the most important thing here, as Krista mentioned with security, it honors the permissions that you have as a user. So if you don't have access to a certain HR file, that information is not going to show up for you when you're using these collaboration tools, when you're using Gemini in the side panel or anywhere else. So it's going to respect that permission and make sure that it's taken into account. Kristen, Michael, any notes on this before we talk a little bit about what we're seeing for customer implementations, how customers are adopting this tool?
Yep, sounds great. Everything looks, I'm just excited to show some of these tools in action here in just a few moments.
I mean, I also have to state, like, since we've had Gemini, I can't function and work any other way at this point. It's so great.
It's certainly a game changer.
Yeah.
Now, we've seen different customers adopt this in different ways. It used to be, let's kind of take you back when we talked about this in session 1 when Laura from Google joined us, and we talked about a little bit of the history. There was a moment in time when Gemini became available for all Google Workspace customers when you're using these enterprise licenses. And that was a big moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
That really helped folks accelerate adoption. But it doesn't like make it tailored to your team, right? There's still things you got to figure out about how does it work best for my team. And so what we've seen, at least what I've seen, and Michael, I'd love to hear your context on this as well. We've run some really big Gemini adoption projects for our customers and helped to increase adoption. And the way that I've seen this work pretty well is, one, don't assume that everybody's paying attention to this or even on board with it, right? Start from the basics. Start from what is this tool and how does it fit into my different workflows, showing more broadly speaking examples to get people excited, to get people tuned into the potential that it offers. And then go and target specific departments and specific workflows. Speak to specific leaders of your business to understand what types of things are you doing, what types of reports or things that you're doing on a repetitive basis that you think AI could be a good candidate for. Work with somebody like Michael from our team or anybody else with SADA to figure out which are the best workflows. How do we target specific workflows for enhancement with AI? Keeping in mind that human in the loop is really a strong piece of any of these offerings. Like, we're not talking about automating everything 100% or 0 to 100%. I think generally a good goal that we look for is like 80% success rate or 80% automation, and then keeping that human in the loop for key decision-making, key inputs is a bit on the safer end of what we can target and what we look for with these things. But man, then as soon as you tailor to folks' workflows, I mean, before you jump into a session, before you go to a team and show them a bunch of examples of how Gemini works, spend the time to understand what are the workflows that they're hoping to use this for. What are the things that are most important to them? What are the things that slow them down? And tailor the training agendas, create some content that's relevant to that team that fits with those workflows. And that's where you're going to see some buy-in there. Michael, or Kristen, any input on helping folks adopt Gemini for Workspace?
Yes, I'll actually jump in on this. I think one of the areas that I've seen the most success is use case specific training. And this is something that we've worked really hard to really configure and create here, is training for sales, training for HR. So we'll go in and we'll actually have specific examples where they can start using this technology now. Because what I found is that folks who have used something like Microsoft Word inherently understand what Google Docs does. There's sort of a one-to-one transition that makes sense. But with AI, people are trying to figure out what is it that they can do with this tool. They don't always know what they don't know. And because we've worked with so many companies, we've seen so many areas of success, being able to break down those silos and give them very, very specific examples of how these tools can be effective with Google Workspace has been transformative. And so those are the things that I think that we're able to really bring to the table and support teams in whatever area they're in.
You know what I like that you said early on, Chris, is like there's some people who don't even want this. And I think there's like those of us who are like, oh my God, how could they think like that? I think it's really important that people need to understand that we are by no means trying to replace the people aspect of work. And AI is not meant to do that. And you've talked about the human element of being part of that. I think even just starting at the basics of understanding that like AI is great, but it's never going to replace a person because you still need to review the results and the results are never going to be perfect. That I think is really important to help even win people over to say, oh, okay, I guess if you're not trying to replace me, I could give this a shot. And that's really big for our toughest clients, I think.
Yeah, I think you're starting to touch on one of the most important things to go in with, which is just being eyes wide open on that resistance when you're hoping to increase adoption of a tool like Gemini for Workspace. We know that it can save people time when it's used well, when it's used effectively, but it takes intentionality to get there. So a couple other tips that we've seen from customers. One, use case specific, department specific training does not replace the need for general training for everybody. Creating awareness of what this product does, what it doesn't do, what it is intended to do within our business, that is a big stage moment. That is when you get out, you put an executive sponsor out in front of all your people and say, this is why we're excited about incorporating Gemini for Workspace in our workflows. And then we zoom in on the department specific stuff. It's not one or the other, it's gotta be both. Yeah. And then going in with solid change management practices. Take the ADKAR model, for example. We start with awareness, we increase desire, we help equip folks with knowledge, give them the ability to change, and then we reinforce that change. So it doesn't have to be the ADKAR model, but understanding that there will be resistance to deploying a tool like Gemini for Workspace, going in eyes wide open, knowing that that's going to happen, and having a plan for that. You know, speaking with your executive sponsor about what is the reason we're doing this, equipping yourself with the why around why is it important that our folks learn how to use these tools. Often it's because our competitors are. We need to stay nimble. We need to stay fast. We need to stay active. If we're not doing it, someone else is. We want to stay in the forefront of this technology and use it to incorporate and enhance our workflows, not replace our people. Yeah. So these are the types of things that, as we've talked about so often throughout this 4-part series, executive sponsorship, critical, 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 especially with tools like AI. Having a leader out there that's trusted to say, here's how I envision this for our organization, and here's how we're going to adopt that. And then going in with like your both aspects, right? Broader adoption, more tailored department specific training, evaluating workflows, right? Not everything has to be replaced by AI or run with AI in it. In fact, there's a lot of things that probably are not a great fit right now, and finding specific workflows that are a good fit and that you've tested and that you've piloted and you've got specific measurable KPIs for, like, how is this performing? How are we refining it? Like there's a lot of strategy that goes in. It's not just turning on the tool and hoping that people will adopt it. That will get you somewhere, but probably not to where you want to go.
To be honest, I think it's how I use my iPhone. There's so many features I don't even know how to use in my phone. I can make it work. But if I knew all of the functionality and features of, like, let's say a Gemini, you're going to use it better. You're going to adopt it so much better. So just turning it on is not something that we would ever really recommend, because you miss out on so many ways you could use this really cool tool.
Mm-hmm. I think going in with eyes wide open, another aspect of that is understanding that if you're not turning on Gemini for Workspace and you're all in on Google Workspace, your people are probably using some other kind of tool. Like they're probably using ChatGPT, they're probably using Claude, they're probably using something else. How is your data protected in those situations?
Yeah.
Sometimes turning on Gemini is saying, hey, this is the tool that protects our data and this is the direction we're going. We got to give them something, right? People want to try these tools. And so being able to make sure that our company and our customers are safe with the ones that we're using is a key for this as well.
Yeah.
I'll get off my soapbox for adoption though. I know we've got a lot to get through. I could talk all day about this stuff because it's exciting and it's important. And we really want to be intentional about the way that we're deploying these tools. So one of the other tools that we're excited about that just came online, if you haven't explored it yet, check it out. It is Workspace Flows. There's Google Workspace learning articles about this tool. You can get to it. What is it, Michael? Flows.workspace.com. Is that the site?
Yeah, that's the one.
That you can get to it directly. And you'll start to see this popping up. You'll start to see this. You'll start to see a little symbol here and there for Workspace Flows. It is incredible what you can do with this. If you haven't seen this in action, I'm excited for you to see what Michael's able to do with it today. A little bit about what it is. It's a no-code automation tool. Takes inputs and triggers from different things. If you've ever used a tool like if this, then that type of tool, flows.workspace.google.com. Thank you, Michael, for that link. No code automation built natively, triggers, and then steps, and then incorporating agentic AI in there. So what's interesting about this tool is that at every step, we can incorporate a Gemini action of like extracting a certain piece of information, making a decision, breaking down some type of context or something, drafting something. Like we can use Gemini in these steps, and then whatever Gemini produces then becomes a variable that we can use in future steps. So really cool Gemini integrations there. And hey, it's the unified workflow advantage, right? We've gone all in. That means all your stuff is connected to Workspace in some way or the other, or you've got a plan to get there, which means that it can connect to things in Drive and on Docs and Sheets and Calendar and all kinds of goodness there. So excited about Flows. Michael, Kristen, any notes on Flows?
The anticipation for this one has been mounting for me. Like I'm just so excited about it.
I'll also say that people have been asking about it, not necessarily by name, but by the requests and the actions that they're looking to solve for. So many times, Chris, you mentioned this earlier about collecting use cases. What are challenges that people are looking for creative solutions for? And people keep asking for something like Flows. They say, how can I automate these tasks? And this tool is tailor-made for that. We'll give you some basic examples today, but just conceptually, what Flows can do and its potential is truly limitless. So we'll give you a sneak peek today before the end of the today.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. People have been asking for this, they just haven't known the words, and the words are Workspace Flows. Really exciting about what this is able to do. We've got one more for you here, and then we're going to take a moment to answer any questions before we pass it off to a demo. So if you've got any questions, now's a great time to put them in the Q&A. We'll just take a moment to pause before we switch over to Michael's demo and answer those. But the last tool here we want to talk about, and that we'll be demoing today, is Gemini Enterprise, formerly known as Agent Space, if you've heard about this tool before. It is just incredible, the amount of context that this gives you, right? The whole conversation today, the whole topic, the whole point of today's discussion is context gives you the power to get a lot out of these tools. And let's be honest, there are systems and technologies that are not directly integrated into Google Workspace, and your business strategy probably doesn't intend them to ever be. Things like Confluence, Jira, Slack, all kinds of different applications that, hey, we use this tool in a very specific way, and that data is not in Google, and there's not really a clear bridge there. And Gemini Enterprise creates that bridge. So think about your prompts. Think about, say you're a salesperson covering an account while your colleague is on PTO, and you've got a meeting on your calendar on Thursday, and you know nothing about this customer or like what's going on in this account. Using a tool like Gemini Enterprise and getting up to speed, getting ready for this call, will look in all of those applications that are connected to it. So it'll look through all your Google Workspace stuff, but then it'll also look in, say, like Salesforce or Confluence or these other tools that you can connect to Gemini Enterprise. And that's really where the power is. It's the context, right? It has the full context of Google Workspace, but then also the context of all these other tools, which makes it really exciting.
If you were around when cloud search was a thing way back in the day, they decided to go away from that, and then they brought it back for a short bit, and then they totally revamped it to create ultimately Gemini Enterprise. And that is the purpose of it. We know that Google does search in general just so well, but what's important is you want to be able to do search within your own documentation that's connected to various things. And this is Google's response to that. It's just actually pretty great. I agree, it's perfect when you're preparing for a call, so you can look through all those different things to see a whole context of, let's say, you're getting ready for a sales call and you want to learn what the customer's done over the last couple of years. You could put a quick prompt into Gemini Enterprise and have everything within minutes.
I think there's a couple of the things that you should know about Gemini Enterprise. One, it has the ability to take actions, and I think that you'll see those grow over time.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we see actions like sending an email, and we see actions like scheduling calendar events. But I think you'll see other actions. I know that there's an intention to provide actions for these other connectors that are being built and worked on. A couple other things. This tool has its own I'll call it an instance of Notebook LM. So we talked about Notebook LM. We showed it a little bit in the previous session. But if you're a Gemini Enterprise customer, you'll see that you also have Notebook LM here. One of the cool things that you can do with Notebook LM in this tool that you can't in the standalone product is connect information from all those extra sources we're talking about. So if it finds an article in Confluence about something that you're working on, and you could really use that in your Notebook LM, there's a quick and simple button to add that source to a notebook. Now, those notebooks are not connected from the Workspace Notebook LM to the Gemini Enterprise Notebook LM, but you might have different purposes for different ones. And you might think, okay, well, I want to make a notebook that has all of these other sources connected to it. I might go to Gemini Enterprise and make sure I use it there. There's also agents. Agents are a bit like gems, but here's where agents are really powerful. Instead of giving a gem specific sources, right? You can give like up to 10 sources into a Gemini gem right now. An agent in Gemini Enterprise has access to all the things that you have access to and the things that you tell it to go look within. So instead of 10 files in a Google Drive folder, it's got access to all of Google Drive or a specific, shared drive if your organization set it up that way. So those agents have more context to work with here in Gemini Enterprise than they would as a gem in, Gemini for Workspace. So there are some nuances. A couple of things about adoption for this tool. The rollout of this tool, we've seen it. We've been here since day one with Google deploying this tool when it was Agent Space. We created pilot programs for our customers to go and try out this tool within small teams of 10, teams of 50. I think 50 is probably around the largest we saw for a pilot in the beginning. And it came down to the connectors. Like your use cases it's really only as useful as the data that you're connecting to it. Mm-hmm. So for instance, if you want a team to be able to use, like your sales team to be able to use it, then it's really important that we connect it to the data that your sales team uses. So knowing what we intend to connect it to helps us point to what are the teams that we want to work with in order to craft a really great pilot experience. And then taking a very similar approach that we took with Gemini for Workspace, like start out broad, talk about what Gemini Enterprise is, what its capabilities are, what it does, what it doesn't do, and then zoom in on those workspaces that we're building that pilot for, or those use cases that we're building that pilot for. What do we intend folks to be able to use this tool for? Show them how they can use it, help them get there, take in their feedback, make refinements and adjustments. And this one's really a tailored rollout for the teams that we intend to use this product. Whereas Gemini for Workspace, very broad rollout, there's value for everybody there. Gemini Enterprise, there is value for everybody, but the data's got to be connected, right? What are we connecting to it? What are we intending for folks to use this tool for? Any other notes on deployments for Gemini Enterprise, Kristen or Michael? I know you've worked on a few of these.
No, I think you said it perfectly, to be honest.
Well, I don't know about that, but I appreciate your your kind words.
Summed it up really
Okay, I've been blabbering enough. This brings us to about the halfway mark. We're right on time. We've got a couple of minutes here for any questions that you have. So let's take a look if there's anything in the Q&A, any questions we can answer before we hand it over to the wonderful Michael Klebanoff for our demo. Any questions at all? Okay. Michael, the stage is yours then.
Thank you, everybody. Yeah, let me go ahead and just take over the screen share here. So I'm just going to present my screen. We're going to walk through just a couple of examples of how we can actually use these tools right now. So just to sort of set the stage here, I want to just sort of walk you through a little bit about who I am and then who's actually going to be presenting today. So as Chris had mentioned, my name is Michael Klebanoff. I'm here from SADA, and I'm very happy to be doing this demo. However, as we jump into the demo, one of the things we're going to be taking a look at is I'm going to be working inside of my training account, which you'll see on the upper right is Ted Mosby. So if you see the name Ted, please do not be alarmed. That is also me. That is my training account. Why do I mention that? Well, I'm glad you asked. I mention that because today, we have a very exciting opportunity. So our fake organization, the company that we all work for, or Ted Mosby works for, is called Innovate Tech. So Innovate Tech. And we've just had an opportunity to bid on our most significant project yet. And the client that we're trying to court in this example is going to be Global Corp. So we really need to find out a little bit more about Global Corp. And we're going to use some of our Gemini tools that are built into Workspace to help find out a little bit more about this client, and then hopefully to make a pitch because we want to help them transform their global supply chain. So let's take a look and see how we here at Innovate Tech can help with Global Corp. So really one of the first things that I'm going to want to put together is develop some sort of efficiency, collaboration, working inside of Google Docs. We're going to touch on a few different applications. But what I'm thinking we can probably start with is some sort of comprehensive proposal. So to do this, we're going to jump over to Google Docs, and we're going to use this great trick, docs.new. Docs.new will literally bring you right into a brand new document. And before you even type out anything at all, you'll notice right at the very top, we have a few options to get started with Gemini. So what we can do is we can use just a basic prompt and then have Gemini help us, or at least help us get started with a document. So with this, I'm actually just going to go to generate a document, this first option here. What this does is it allows us to type in a basic prompt. We can see here at the bottom, it'll say to describe the document you want to create. I'm just going to type in a basic prompt like this: draft a comprehensive proposal for an AI-powered supply chain optimization service for global manufacturing client. Now I'm going to click create. Now I want you to think about how long it would take you to draft a proposal. And I'm willing to bet it would probably take you more than 5 seconds. It's a wild guess. I know, I'm just going to throw that out there. But it not only created the content for us, but it actually gave us a really useful template so we can start to build out what we want to use. Now, I've heard a few people mention already that there are sometimes people who are resistant to using AI, and they want to create their own content. This is perfect for them too, because even if you're just using this to templatize and to build out content that you then want to go back and fill in, well, now you've done it because it's actually provided us specific sections and headers and formatting. It's even adding tables so we can add in things like KPIs and expected improvement ranges. All of this information is custom made and designed for us to just fill in the data really quickly and really easily. But let's not stop there. Let's actually take a look at how we can analyze some of this raw data, because we've been sent some information about this potential client, and we want to analyze some areas where they might be able to implement some cost savings. So let's actually jump over to a spreadsheet that was sent to us. I'm going to take a look here. So here is Global Corp's supply chain inefficiency stock. Now, this is a range of data from 2015 to 2024, and we really want to find out where are some areas that we can actually go in and find out where they can be a little bit more efficient. So I'm going to take this document and we're going to open up Gemini. Now, one of the ways that we can interact with Gemini in something like Google Slides is what's called the side panel. And you'll see this little button all the way in the upper right. In fact, anytime you see the little Gemini diamond, you know there's some sort of magic happening there. We can click on the Gemini diamond. It will open up the side panel. And then we can type in prompts on the right-hand side to start interacting with our data. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, analyze this data and identify 3 areas of cost savings for optimized supply chain over the last 5 years, and suggest a visual representation for each. Now, this is a really good example of a prompt, especially when you're working with a lot of data, because again, you can go through literally hundreds or even thousands of lines of data. And what we need to do here is just extract some of the key points. Now, right away, again, in just a few moments, we get the top 3 areas of cost savings. So we can take a look at, there's an excess of inventory holding, expedited freight costs, and then production downtime. Again, this sort of data becomes really powerful, but as we start to scroll through, it will even start to suggest some other visual elements. So once we start to feed prompts into Gemini, then it will start to offer us recommendations such as create a bar chart showing the annual cost impact of excess inventory holding. So we can click on any one of these. Let's see what we get. And then Gemini is going to go through, not only analyze the data, but give us content that we can actually use here visually as well. And that looks great. So now we've got a really nice chart that we can just drop into something like a slide deck. So speaking of slide decks, why don't we actually create something that we can now share out with the rest of the team? So we've broken down some information in the sheet. We've actually put together a proposal. Let's go to slides.new and see how we can tie this all together. So with this, I'm going to go to a brand new tab. I'm going to go to slides.new, just like we did with docs.new from earlier. And then we can go in and start to build out a slide deck. Now, here's the interesting thing about this is we've already put together some information. We've got a Google slide, we've got a Google Doc. So what if we can pull in some of that information to help influence what appears in the slide deck? Well, the way that we can do this is by clicking all the way in the upper left corner, and there it is, it says, help me create a slide. And again, there's that little Gemini diamond. So when we click on this, our side panel opens up on the right-hand side, and what we can do is just type out a basic prompt to help get us started. Now, I'm going to type a prompt, something like this. Generate a compelling slide summarizing our unique value proposition and competitive differentiators for AI-powered supply chain solutions. But all of this information needs to be based on a document that we already have. Here's the trick. Because all of this lives inside of Google Workspace, you can type in the @ symbol, and then it will pop up with documents that we've literally been working with. So I'm going to choose that spreadsheet we just looked at. So I'm going to choose that spreadsheet. And then I'm going to hit enter or return. And the idea is once your data lives in something like Google Drive, it's all bound together through Gemini. And the ability to go to the apps we're already using, Docs, Sheets, Slides, and then pull in some of that information is what makes this really, really powerful. All right, this is looking pretty good. Not only did it build us a custom slide, which is formatted really nicely, it looks great. It actually generated this image. So this is AI generated imagery, which is really useful. So we don't have to worry about copyrights. But the bullet points are actually pulled directly from the spreadsheet. So notice it says focus on minimizing excess inventory holding costs. That was actually one of the points that was summarized when we were working inside of Google Sheets. Now we can just click insert, and just like that, our data is all set up and ready to go. And if you wanted to have a little bit of fun with this as well, if we went back to that particular sheet, I could even click on this sheet. We can copy the chart that it generated with Gemini, and then we can drop it into one of our slides. And so in terms of linking data, it just makes it really easy to go through, copy data, paste it in, and everything just sort of links together. So I can copy that chart and then we can drop it right into our slide deck here. So really, really useful stuff. And when you link it in, it does give you the option to paste in, and you can link it to the original spreadsheet. So if the spreadsheet is up to date, well, it updates here as well. And that's really kind of the beauty of working with all this, is it's all really just sort of talking and working together. All right, with our last few minutes here, just before I finish up, I want to take a look at a couple other ways that we can now communicate this out with the team. We put together some great documentation, doc sheets, slides. Now let's actually share this out with Gmail and chat, and then we'll take a quick sneak peek at Flows and then Gemini Enterprise. All right, so let's actually jump over to our email. Let's actually jump over to Gmail. This is probably where we spend most of our time doing communication. And when I take a look at our email, it looks like we've got this email here, and this is all about Global Corp. That's our new company that we're trying to court. And let me zoom in here so we can better see this. And I'm thinking I want to generate some sort of a reply based off of this email. So what we can do is we can literally open up, we can click Ask Gemini in the upper right. Gemini side panel on the right-hand side is dynamic. So it actually has the ability to look at the email we're actually working with. So if I were to say something like draft a reply, it knows exactly what message we're looking at. So I'm going to say draft a polite and detailed email response. Well, what I want it to do is look at some of the information that we have access to. So again, I'm going to type in the @ symbol. I'm going to say @, and then I want to type in Innovate. There's our Innovate Tech Solutions. So this is a document that has some of the solutions already inside of Google Drive. And now it's going to incorporate that information into our reply. So I can just choose that document from the list. Now, if I hit enter or return, it'll go ahead and start to process that prompt. And then let's see what we get here. All right, it did a really good job. Not only did it build out the prompt, but it referenced other information, which is really useful. Now, this is looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with this. But I'm thinking we can go a little bit further here. And one way that we can go further is with Gemini Enterprise. So I'm going to click Reply All. I like this, but I'm going to see what Gemini Enterprise can do. One of the problems that we run into when we start to generate responses sometimes is that it's looking at all of the data, not just the data we have mentioned or not the data we have in email, but what if there's data in other places? This could be unstructured data. So for example, let's say that we want to take a look at something like really how to unlock some of that structured data as it relates to Global Corp, maybe looking at things like annual reports, their investor transcripts, maybe we're looking at manufacturing trends. All of this information may not be available inside of Gmail. Let's jump over and take a look at how we can use Gemini Enterprise to go a little bit deeper with our response. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a new chat, and then I'm going to type in our prompt. Now, in some of our previous examples, what we've had to do here with some of our previous examples is I've had to go in and I've had to specifically point Gemini to a file inside of, let's say, Google Drive. And there's nothing wrong with that. But Gemini Enterprise, we don't have to do that at all. All of the data sets are automatically plugged in. And this can be customized to your organization so that you can have it feeding in specific data sets. But now what it's going to do is it's going to go ahead and start to take a look at all places where information lives for Global Corp. And it's going to help us identify the top 3 strategic growth challenges. And we can actually take this and then turn it into another email draft. Now, this will take just about a moment here. It takes a little bit longer than some of our other prompts, but it's literally combing through all the channels of the sourceable data. The other thing that makes Gemini Enterprise, I think, so powerful is that it's multimodal, meaning it can generate things like images or charts or graphs. This looks great. It's actually built out a table, which I think could be really useful. In fact, I want to go one step further, which is it might be nice to actually turn this into an email draft. And I don't just mean to generate a response. I mean, literally create the entire draft. Gemini Enterprise can literally go through and actually generate emails for you. So I'm going to say draft a polite. We want to make sure we're being polite, of course. A detailed email response to Global Corp's procedurement lead. This is a similar prompt as we just used in Gmail, except this time it's pulling in all of those data sources. Again, it starts to understand contextually what we're asking for, and it will start to build out an email here for us. So we can actually go through, take a look at that specific message, and send it right from Gemini Enterprise. We wouldn't even have to open up Gmail at all. We can do it all from here. It sort of becomes this one-stop shop. You'll notice also when I asked it to build the email, one thing I did not ask it for was the recipient. But it understood the recipient based on the context of the previous email we just saw in Gmail. And then it took all that information and synthesized it into an email that's really easy to read, and easy to send out right from here. If we wanted to make some changes, we certainly could. Otherwise, I can just click send, and we can send that right on off. So some powerful ways to actually use these tools right now. All right. The last thing I want to touch on here before we finish up for today, and I promise we'll save a little bit of time for some Q&A, but the last thing I want to touch on is what Chris was sort of teasing earlier, which is flows. So what is flows? Basically with flows is we can create these workflows and create these custom AI agents to do what we want to basically expedite some sort of a workflow in our day-to-day. Let me give you an example here. We put together some wonderful documentation around this new client. We sent out our email communications. We've created spreadsheets and started to crunch those numbers. But I now want to stay connected with our team through Google Chat. So when we go to something like Google Chat, what we've done is we've actually created something called Global Corp Bid. This is a chat space where we can all communicate about this client. But I'd like to create a workflow so that anytime we add in information to this chat, what we can then do is then automatically send that information from the chat, anything that's relevant, to a shared note. We can always have access to all of our notes based off what we build here inside of Google Chat. So let's take a look at how we can do this. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and post something here to the team. I'm going to say, hey team, I just responded to a request about the security and compliance. Let's talk about this week. This might be really useful to add in to our weekly meeting notes. But let's create a workflow that actually helps us do this. All the way on the upper right, you'll actually see there is a flows button that appears inside of chat and inside of Gmail. If we click on this, it will open up the side panel, and we have access to either discover some of the flows that are available here, some of our custom agents that we've created, or you can click do more in flows at the bottom. And this will actually bring you to the standalone website that Chris was talking about earlier. What we're going to do is actually create a custom flow right now. So what I'm going to do is click on the plus all the way in the upper left. And then from here, we're going to build out all of these actions. Let me just zoom in here just a little bit here so we can better see this. So the first thing I want to start off with, our little starter here, is dealing with our emoji reaction. So step one, I'm going to say when an emoji action is re-added, is when an emoji reaction is added. That'll be our first step. Now, the emoji reaction I want to use right now is I'm going to say we'll just do the rocket ship. I think that'll be fun. So anytime we add a rocket ship using the space, so the space that we're going to be looking at is Global Corp. So that's our Global Corp bid space. Anytime somebody adds in a rocket ship, we want it to do something. Well, what is that something we want to do? Well, I'm going to click on step 2. So step 2 in our workflow is I want to add this to the weekly notes. So I'm going to scroll down, and you can see everything is listed by app: Gmail, Chat, Sheets, Drive. So I'm going to say anytime somebody adds in that rocket emoji, I want a specific document to be updated. What is that document? Well, that document happens to be our weekly notes. And it appears because we use it so frequently. So I'm going to choose to insert. And we could choose things like what tab does it go to, or does it go to the top or the bottom of that particular note. I'm going to just keep all of that as a default. But what I want to do is add in some information about this. So I'm going to say that we add in our weekly meeting notes, and then I want to add in some additional context here. So I've got my emoji. Now what I want to do is basically add in a variable. So what does this mean? So maybe I want to find out something like this. I want to find out anytime somebody adds a note, I want to know, let's say, their display name. We can add that in there. Another thing we can add in, if I click on this, maybe we want to add in, let's say, the time or the date. So we can add that in as well. So we're adding in some of these variables. Now we're going to add in the last step. I'm going to click one more step. And then from here, I'm going to go in and say what we want to do is actually post this in the chat space. So I can scroll back down. I can find chat in our list. And I can say that we want to post in a space. Now, what's the name of that space? So that space was the Global Corp bid space. And then here will be the message. So just a basic message so that everybody can see inside of our particular note or inside of our chat space that there's an action item that has been added. So I can go ahead and add that in. Now let's just test this out. If we click test run at the very bottom, we can actually just run this out. We can iterate and check it before it's been saved. But if we feel pretty good about it and we've started this out, it'll actually go through, run this, and test this out for us and see if it's all working. And then we can turn it on. We can actually try it. So it looks like we got all green. That's good. Let's click turn on at the bottom. That basically saves this agent, and then it's ready to go. Now I'll go ahead and rename this here. So maybe I want to call this, let's say, notes agent, something like that. So we've given that a name. And let's jump back over to chat. Let's actually test this out. Let's see what we've got here. So here it is. We're now inside of our Global Corp bid. We've realized somebody has posted some information that we find is really important. Therefore, we want to add it to our weekly notes. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on the little rocket ship. And the moment I click on the rocket ship, it's going to automatically start to process that flow. So we'll give that just a few moments. It's processed the flow. We know this because it says action item has been added to the meeting notes. So it processed automatically. And now when we go to our weekly meeting notes, there it is. We can see the item has been added. So Ted Mosby, and then it added in the particular time and date. We could go in and customize this in many different ways, and you can change this and update this however you'd like. But this is just one simple example of how we can actually go through and start to customize flows so that it's taking all of these actions and performing them automatically and efficiently for us. So I know I've given you a quick high-level overview. There's a lot more to learn, but hopefully this gave you at least a couple of fun tips and tricks of how you can utilize these tools right now and how they're all integrated into your system. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and pause right there. I'll turn it back over to Chris. Chris, I'll turn it over to you here to recap and then maybe open up for some Q&A.
Thank you, Michael. Round of applause, show of emojis for Michael in the chat. Thank you so much, sir, for the demo. That was fantastic. I love flows is really exciting. I think, Kristen, as a PM, you're probably in the background integrating that into our various project chat spaces. So.
Oh my gosh, I cannot wait. I'm so excited.
Or, I know you've got raid logs, right? Somebody raises a risk in a chat space, click a different emoji, and it automatically adds it to the raid log. Like this is,
yes.
There's so many cool things that we can do. So I know there's a couple of questions in the chat. Let's go at the top here. So Edgar asks, how about the usage of Gemini via API access where the workload is fully running on Gemini? How can I manage downtimes for models and version upgrades? Cool. I've got one note on this, and I know, Kristen, I think you've got a bit more context as well.
Yeah, I do.
Specifically for Gemini Enterprise, as an admin of that for your company, last I checked, you do get to select the model that your company is using. So you'll get to, if there is a model upgrade, and you can then choose when you want to switch to, from 2.5 Flash to 2.5 Pro, or from, whenever the next one comes out. So Gemini Enterprise, you get to pick which model it's running on. Kristen, any other notes on that one?
Yeah, it does depend on whether you're using the consumer-focused Gemini API or the enterprise-grade Vertex AI Gemini API. So there is a difference on where are you choosing to run this on. We would highly recommend that if you're going to choose to do a workload like this, that you would utilize Vertex AI Gemini API, because they offer a higher level of stability control, and there are explicit SLAs, which is why we make that a recommended choice. If you have any additional or further questions on that, Edgar, we'd be happy to connect you to our Vertex AI team to get more of that resolved for you. I hope that answered your initial questions regarding that.
And then Edgar, for your other question about learning how to talk, interactive Gemini prompting, so there's a couple of Google resources on this. I know that my team has some more. But first, if you were to Google Gemini or Gemini prompting guide, Google has a guide specifically on this. I think they call it their prompting guide 101. Google has additional resources. There's even a course that Google offers called Google Prompting Essentials. That's through their partnership with Coursera. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. Any other resources to offer for prompting, team?
Yeah, those are the big ones. The Google one is nice because it actually has specific use cases. So you can go through, you can choose what department you're in, and it'll give you prompts related to that use case.
Awesome. Sweet. All right. Then on that note, I'm going to steal the slides back from you then, Michael, if that's okay. Thank you for the questions. If there's any others, feel free to drop them in the Q&A. We'll be able to address those. But I am sad to say that our 4 sessions, our 4 weeks,
Oh my gosh.
it's coming to an end. It's been a lot of fun. I wish we could keep going. Hey, maybe if you liked this, let us know. We'll do some more content. But hey, we've gone through a lot of stuff. Oh, thank you, Michael, for that prompting guide. If you would so kindly put that into the Q&A so that our audience can see that, drop that as a Q&A question instead of just in the chat, since that's where they'll have access to that. Thank you. But I do want to say thank you so much for coming by for this 4 weeks. If you're just joining us for session 4, you picked a great session to hop in on. The others will be available. I'd recommend going and rewatching those. We started off, actually, let me get my recap slide up here. We started off talking about what does it mean to go all in with Google Workspace? What did that mean in the past? What does it mean now? We had Laura from Google here chatting with us about, what was the history of going all in and switching to Google Workspace. Kristen talks a lot about data strategy and securing our foundation in session 2. Session 3, we all embarked on the transformation challenge together, which was a lot of fun. We did challenges as a team. Hopefully you were able to take that resource from session 3 and share that with your team. That site is still live and available for you to use. And then today we got to see from the wonderful Michael Klebanoff about, hey, once you're on this platform, what are some of the things that we can do? And I know if you're like me, you're already thinking about how you can use Workspace Flows to just accelerate things that your team does every day, right? So Kristen, Michael, and any notes from you as we're kind of wrapping up today's session?
It really has been so much fun. I hope that this has provided some clarity as to what does transformation mean. It can have a lot of different meanings across a lot of different platforms. Our hope was that you would understand what this means to SADA and how we've worked really closely with our clients to try to change the way that we do things to meet the client where they are. So it's just been a really fun journey to do this with you.
Yeah, and I would say just from personal experience, something I love about these projects and something that is challenging is that there is no one size fits all about work transformation projects. When you're looking at, I want to help my business go into one platform to reduce costs or increase collaboration or efficiencies, that comes with the unique challenges that your business has. And something that I love about our approach is that our approach is not one size fits all. We dive into use case exploration. We figure out those technical and business use cases and who's dependent on those things. We use things like our Nexus Trace application. We deploy custom training, with department specific workflows and things. And that's why people do and ask ask for Michael by name often because he does such a great job with that. So there is not a one size fits all. And that's why we are so passionate about this, because we think that that makes it a lot of fun. You know, if we were doing the same thing every time, waking up every day, doing the exact same sessions, the exact same stuff, that might get a little boring. But figuring stuff out together with you, solving the challenges that matter to you, that's why I get out of bed in the morning. So I'm happy to be here and happy to be walking through this content.
Yeah, and while it's not a one size fit all, our methodology can be leveraged heavily to
Yep.
make sure we ultimately get to what we need to. So we fully, wholeheartedly believe in our methodology over years of experience. So
Great. Thank you, everybody.